Hi, my name is Kristine Chin, and I am the Director of Conferences for AIChE. And with me here today is Henry Kister, Senior Fellow and Director of Fractionation Technology with Fluor. Uh, Thank you, Henry, for joining us for this interview. I've actually known you for now nearly 2 decades. And in the 2 decades of knowing you, you've always been such a big proponent of giving back to the profession. You have over 30 years of experience to share with young engineers, with older engineers, and your experience is a wide range in designing, troubleshooting, and revamping fractionation technology and processes. You have a nickname, a very interesting nickname. You are known as the Tower Doctor, and that was bestowed upon you by Richard Darton, Professor of Engineering at Oxford University. The saying goes, when a tower is not well, you ask Henry to diagnose the illness, and he'll find the remedy for you. How did you get this nickname, the Tower Doctor?
Thank you for having me out here. It's a great honor to be out here and to be interviewed by you. And yes, it's been a wonderful association with you and AIChE over the last 2 decades. To answer your question, my father was a medical doctor, and he had a phenomenal diagnostic ability, and who at the age of 95 gained the record of being the oldest practicing doctor in the state of New South Wales in Australia. My mother, she was a psychiatrist and who never failed to identify the correct root cause of a patient's problem, and who worked to her last day. So I'm just grateful to God that He blessed me with some of my parents' diagnostic abilities and also the passion and dedication to the profession. So much of my work is really consists of leading troubleshooting investigations and dig into some unresolved mysteries in that. And sometimes it's a minor detail that causes, a lot of the time, it's a minor detail that can cause a major problem to happen. One of the problems that I worked with was a minor flaw, a flashing feed going into a downcomer that caused a bottleneck in a plane for 17 years. Now that bottleneck survived 3 fix attempts by a major engineering contractor who never went to the field to check the problem out properly and to examine the patient, as I should say in my father's language. Okay, and of course they could not get the answer right. And one good measurement is worth 1,000 expert opinions, and that measurement was missing on that one. Now, while I was doing assignments like that, it actually took me to a lot of unsolved mysteries that kind of revealed themselves during this investigation. And things like some of the phenomena like vapor cross-flow channeling, downcomer unsealing on trays, and kettle reboiler hydraulics, all these things we learned the hard way. We learned these things when we had a troubleshooting assignment and we need to address that. And also helps you to find some new troubleshooting techniques that we developed over the years and hopefully will be there for the new engineers to use in the future.
Well, you've done a great job in terms of sharing all of your knowledge with hundreds and probably thousands of engineers. You've written a book on distillation troubleshooting, and you have been running the long-running Kister Distillation Symposia at the AIChE Spring Meeting. What motivates you to share all of this knowledge?
Well, it's actually, it all started when I was 4 years out of school at that time. I was a process engineer working for ICI in Australia. And one day I was sitting in my office, the boss walks in and he says to me, effective immediately, you're going to be our startup superintendent. You're going to be starting up our distillation columns. And incidentally, this is a promotion, so congratulations. Okay, so I look at him and I said to him, okay, what do I do? He says to me, I don't have time to tell you, so why don't you go and find out for yourself? And as he was heading towards the door, I was asking one more question. I said, is there any good book that I can read about starting up distillation columns? He said to me, you'll find these good books, you get 2 copies of it. I'm paying for both. Now, you're gonna keep 1 copy, and I'm gonna get the other copy. And he left. Okay, so I had to go and try to find things out. Now, one thing about ICI, they gave you the room to move. And so I thought, okay, well, one way of finding out is get out a notebook, a pen, and just start walking around from plant to plant, seek all these people, operation people, these engineers, anyone that had gray hair, talk to them about their experiences, about their lessons, what they learned in the School of Hard Knocks, and I was taking notes. And these notes became more and more and more. And then after a few years, I kind of added some of my own experiences to that, and it became quite thick. And we got published, I had them published as a series of articles. Then later on, the series of articles evolved into a seminar manual for a seminar that I was giving. And later on, it evolved into a book. Now, incidentally, that plant manager that I had, his name was Dick Harris. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But he was one of my greatest mentors and a very great distillation enthusiast. Now, 13 years after the time that he walked into my office, that was the time when I walked into his office with the book in my hand. And I said to him, "Hey, Dick, that's the book that you asked about." And that was a great moment in my life to just watch his face light up when he was handed that book. But I'll tell you one thing, there was even, I've even had one greater moment than that, and this is when I handed the book to my father and my mother. And just watch them look at that book and really the face light up. And this is one of the greatest experiences you can ever have in your life. And talking about motivators, it's unbeatable. And also some great moments when I handed the book to my other mentors, the late Professor Ian Doig, also, and two other people, Walter Stupin and Reno Zach, who have been some of my greatest mentors around. And so that is, okay, now getting back to the professional motives of all that. In the late 1980s, I was on one assignment in which doing a revamp on the distillation column that was desperately after additional capacity. And I increased the whole area on the trays out there. Now, hoping to get more capacity, but when the plant came back online, instead of getting more capacity, they lost 5% capacity, which was a complete and total disaster. Okay, we did a lot of troubleshooting, a lot of investigation over the next half a year. We stumbled across a mechanism that was at that time unknown, which was vapor crossflow channeling. That's how we got across it. And at that time, and eventually we found a way of getting back to the previous capacity so that at least we could reverse the disaster that happened. 10 years later, I was invited to exactly the same facility. And the tower that I was working on was since then replaced by a bigger tower to accommodate the additional capacity. But the tower right next to it, which had almost the same hydraulics, was revamped, this time by a different contractor. And you want to guess what this other contractor did? They increased the whole area on the trays. And of course, with the same results, that's why they called me in. And I said, this guy said, hey, wait a minute. We've been through that exercise 10 years ago. How come we're going through that again? And they said, well, you know, the people that were on the same team have moved on. There's only actually one guy from the original team that was still serving on the revamp team. And he's actually voiced his opposition. He said, hey, this we did it 10 years ago and it did not work, so why should it work now? But nobody else listened to him. And so at that time, I just realized how short are the memories of the process industries. People repeat the same mistakes over and over again. Now, if you go through the literature, you will see that a lot of the errors that are being made are repetitive. Time and time again. For example, once per year, we hear of a case of a high liquid level in a column causing tray damage or packing damage or something like that. Once a year, we hear a problem of people forgetting to do a force balance on a kettle reboiler, and that causes a bottleneck in the whole tower. And time again. And at that time, it occurred to me, says, look, if we can stop that chain of events, if we can really learn from the past experiences, we can benefit the whole process industry. And this is exactly what, this is what this book is all about. That's exactly right, and that's exactly what motivated me to put this book together. And now, why are we not learning from past lessons? Well, you've got mergers, you've got cost cuts, and you've got and a lot of people retire in these processes, and that takes away a lot of the knowledge that people accumulate over the years. And maybe this book will help retain a lot of that knowledge in the industry. Okay, and another thing which makes things even worse, these days, computers, websites, there's so much information around. It's an explosion of information. And to try to find out the important stuff is just a matter of starting to search a needle in a haystack. And the haystack keeps on growing all the time. So one of the things that, again, the objective is to be able to make that needle a bit more accessible to everybody. And that was, again, the motivation for doing all this work.
Well, thank you, Henry. I think you sounds like you've had quite a great number of mentors who have really influenced you in your career. You have an opportunity to influence many of the young engineers out there. What kind of career advice would you give them today?
Okay, a couple of things. And number one is one good measurement is worth 1,000 expert opinions. It's number one. And number two, if you learn from your own experiences, you're smart. But if you learn from other people's experiences, you are wise.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Yes, there's definitely something else I'd like to share. I had a lot of great things that happened to me throughout my career, a lot of great things that led me to this honor of being interviewed right now. And I really do want to thank God for everything. I owe it to God. I've had all my life full of miracles that got me to this very special moment and to all the very special moments in my life.
Well, thank you so much, Henry, for coming and taking the time for this interview. I hope that everybody appreciates all the words of wisdom that you've had to share.
Okay. Thank you very much.